in consortium, but we also ensure that the research committee have access and that the data will be under embargo for 2 years while the investigators will complete the analysis. In terms of documentation, the data will be saved using the PDF format, but the code book and the methodological designs and issues, details of variables will be shared and provided so that all information necessary for secondary analysis can be done accurately and effectively. In terms of intellectual property rights, the principal investigator of the research and the institutions that we'll be working with. In this case, we assume we may have to work with UNICEF because this is probably get a fund or a grant from UNICEF to carry out this project because it has to do with children and their future. So they will hold the intellectual property rights, but we grant the distribution rights to the repository for purpose of data sharing. Ethics and privacy. The ethics will be the language and the copy will be done in Hausa and English, and the information in this study will only be used in ways. This is what we provide. Will only be used in ways that will not reveal who the guardian or the child are, or the children are, so they will not be identified in the publication. And we also assure them of confidentiality with respect to the information they provided. And that, however, the federal or state can require us to share information to the university or government, or even the UNICEF, because they are responsible for monitoring the safety of the study. This is the format we are going to employ in preserving the data. So we generate and process them using the ICPSR as well as the SPSS system. I've already said the documentation will be done using the PDF, and the documentation will be preserved also using the PDF. Backup the repository, we are still going to use this repository then for archival with several copies stored at designated locations. We intend to also open a website for the project where most of the information will be provided for whoever wants to get what they are doing in the project. While the future long-term use of the data will be ensured by placing the copy also in the repository. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So again, kindly forward this presentation to Samuel so that we can share it with the larger group. Thank you, sorry for the left. Colleagues, can I assume that now if a funder is to request for a data management plan, we can comfortably write one? Is that assumption correct? Okay. Okay, so we get into our schedule for today. Yesterday we were successful in catching up with the backlog that we had from the first day. Okay, so what I'm going to do this morning is to walk you through do files that I've already prepared, and I'm going to share those do files with you. the front there. Can we get that light off? Can you read from afar? Or is it too blur? We can manage, isn't it? Yeah. Okay. So, as I said, I'm going to share these do files with you and the one that I'm going to use later with you. So, I just want you to focus on what we have on the screen. Take your eyes off your computers for the first 10-15 minutes. So, I tried to put down some notes just as I went through yesterday. I realized some of you had challenges typing along and capturing the notes as well. So, I do some mandatory initial Stata commands. Then I go over the living standard and measurement surveys and the demographic health surveys. So yesterday I talked about clear, and today I put it down, but I add all to it. The reason why I add all to it is that, as Professor said yesterday, clear means you are wiping off the data that you've called in existence. So you want a fresh sheet that you can work with. But here I'm adding all because anytime Stata executes a command, it stores some other estimations at the back end. I'm going to show that to you shortly. So even if it does summarize, there are a number of statistics that sits on the back end that you can always call and work with it. Anytime it does estimation, there's always something sitting at the back end. So if you want to clear everything completely, you use the clear all command. The capture log close is telling Stata that I've been introduced to a log file. So anytime I want to work, I have to open a log file. But there are instances where you open the log file using the drop-down menu and you forget to close the log file. If you forget to close the log file and you start working with Stata again, it will not allow you to open a new log file. So one of the mandatory commands, and again these are practices that it's all over the place. You put in as one of your mandatory command capture log close. So you are telling Stata that if by chance I've opened a log file and I've not closed it, capture this open log file and close it. The third one has to do the set more off command. Yesterday we talked about the results window. The results window has a capacity of results that it can take at any point in time. So if it reaches that capacity, the other results would not automatically pop up until you click on the more. So this set more off command is simply telling Stata that disengage that capacity, that limitation on the results. So that more command, disengage it and pull up all my results for me. I'm going to show you an example shortly. Then the fourth mandatory command is the set max var 32,676 permanently command. Yesterday I mentioned to you that we have the small, we have the intercode, and we have the special edition. And I mentioned that the special edition can take up to 32,000 variables. If you are working with a data set that has this amount of variables, you need to specifically tell Stata that I want to work with that maximum. So that if the version that I have by default is captured as 1,000, you don't want that 1,000 to be a limitation. So you want to tell Stata that for any work that I do, whatever the number of variables, as far as it doesn't exceed 32,676, accommodate whatever number of variables. And you set it permanently, and your Stata software would work with it. On line 32, I talked about it yesterday. And I said, CD means change directory. CD means change directory. And it's specific to a particular computer. It's specific to a particular computer. So one of the things we're going to do today is how we're going to specify a particular path on our respective laptops so that all that we do would go into that folder, and we can also take data out of that folder. That is what the CD command does. Then again, on line 36, again yesterday I talked about the log file. So the way you open a log file instead of a drop-down menu. Yesterday I demonstrated it with a drop-down menu. But now you can write a command for it and just say log using The 2018 underscore AAU is any name that you can give to it. So for purposes of this course, I call it 2018 underscore AAU. But what you need to remember is the log, which it is black in there, sorry, blue in there, meaning that it is recognized as a built-in command for Stata. You are typing it on your own, and we add the option replace. In a number of things that I'm going to do today, you're going to see the option replace. The reason why we add replace is that if I've already opened a log file with the same file name 2018 AAU, I cannot open another file, I cannot open another log file and give it the same name, 2018 AAU. So I'm telling Stata that if I have to run my command 100 times, overwrite the log file with the name 2018 underscore AAU. That is what the replace is doing. So these are the initial mandatory commands that I would always advise you to have them before you start working. Now what I've done here on slides 38 to 46 is to mention some specific data sets in Ghana, which I believe some of them are also in Nigeria. And I entreat you to look out for these data sets for whatever analysis you want to do. So the World Bank rolls out what it calls the World Bank Enterprise Survey. So this is a firm level analysis. And the World Bank does it for a number of developing countries. For those of us who live in countries including Ghana, I don't know the case for Nigeria, that panel data set does not exist. This is one of the only or few panel data sets that you would come across in developing countries. And as I said, the unit of analysis is at the firm level. So in Ghana, the first survey was in 2007, and the second survey was in 2013. The sample is small, it's not nationwide, but it covers 4 regions in the country. So it's something that you would want to look out for. The other one is the Feed the Future survey. Is USAID doing something like that in Nigeria? Yes. So you have the data. Okay. So in Ghana, Feed the Future is also very present. And as I said, USAID has demarcated the 3 regions in the northern part of the country and the upper part of the Brong-Ahafo region as what it calls its zone of influence. And again, it has panel data at the household level on this. The other one, which with certainty I know it's in both countries, is the Demographic Health Survey, which we are going to work with, and also the Living Standard Survey, which we're going to work with. Do we have the Multiple Indicator Cluster Survey in Nigeria? Yes. Okay. So this is a data set that is available freely, and you'd also want to make use of it. Then do you have FINDEX, the Financial Development Index? Again, this is a World Bank exercise that tries to look at household behavior, financial behavior over time. Then do we have the Innovation for Poverty Action? Okay. Then the Oxford data, which is also at the firm level. So what I want to talk about per our program is the Ghana Living Standard Survey and the Demographic Health Survey. So to begin with, I want to mention that anytime you want to work with a data set, you need to appreciate how the data set has been captured. And anytime you collect your own data set, you need to make a decision on how to capture the data set. So I'm going to introduce you to 2 data sets that have been captured differently. Whichever way it is captured, there's the need to appreciate it, and then the cleaning will start from that point. So if you look at what we have on the screen, it shows us that the Ghana Living Standard Survey, the sixth round, had 13 sections, starting from the demographic section up to the governance section. And because it's a World Bank project, it's consistent across developing countries where the living standard and measurement surveys are done, with just minimal variations depending on the country's interest. So all these 13 sections, you are likely to find about 80% across all developing countries where the World Bank does this. In this data set, yesterday you downloaded it, isn't it? So let's go back. No, you don't. I'm going to show it here. In this data set, okay. Sorry, it's blur from that end, but you have it on your system. In this data set, the data has been captured based on sections. So if you collect your own data and your survey is captured in sections, one way by which you can capture the data is to capture it in terms of sections. So the Living Standards Measurement Survey captures the data based on sections. And that is what you have sitting on your computer. For those of you who've been able to download the Demographic Health Survey, how has the data been captured? Sorry? So that is the Living Standard Measurement Survey. No, the GDS is not based on that. So none of you were able to download the data set? Okay. So get it on a stick and share it.
Please, yeah, let me get a stick so that I share it. So I give it to you, copy, you give it, and then I go to the other side.
Okay, so the only thing you're going to see it later when you get a data set. So the way the LSMS captures data set based on sections is not the same way as DHS captures data. So the DHS doesn't capture the data based on sections. The DHS would capture the data based on the unit of observation. The DHS will capture the data based on the unit of observation. So if you get a DHS file, you get a file only for children. You get a chart only for mothers. You get a chart for fathers. You get the chart for the couple, depending on the different unit of analysis in the data set. So you always need to make a decision on how you want to capture the data sets. In another instance, in other data sets that I've worked with, it's done in a hierarchical way, data at the individual level, data at the household level, and data at the community level. So as a researcher, you always need to be clear in your mind how I want to capture my data set. Whichever way you capture your data set, your metadata has to speak to it. So for instance, if you capture the data in sections, your metadata should give clear lines on how the different sections can be put together. If you capture the data set based on the unit of observation, for instance, the child data set, the female data set, the male data set, the couple data set, your metadata should clearly indicate how these different data sets can be put together. And the same applies to the situation where your data set is in a hierarchical form, individual, household, community. It should be clear on how the data set can be put together. If your metadata is not explicit on how the data sets can be put together, it creates a barrier on its usage. And that is why a number of data sets in this part of the world is difficult to use. Because you don't know how the data set was created, and you don't know how you can put them together because there's no metadata on these data sets. So going back to this, assuming you want to do a study on, this is one of the popular issues in labor economics, on returns to education. You want to do,
Where do we put metadata?
sorry?
Where do we put the metadata?
The metadata?
Metadata reader. Is that the back or?
No, dependent, that is if you collect your own data. It depends, where you are hosting the data, your metadata should also be there.
Provide information about the data
Yes,
immediately after presentation.
exactly. And this is what I was saying yesterday, that if you are working with a funder or a journal that requests you to submit your data, you don't submit only the data. You submit the raw data plus the metadata. Do you understand? So if you are hosting it on a data repository's website, it's both the data and the metadata that has to be there. So let me quickly see if I can pull up an example. Why is my screen showing so small? I don't know why. 1 second, I need to figure out why my